The traffic buzzed through the heart of Manhattan that afternoon, but for Samuel Mars, that Wednesday felt unusually slow. Behind the wheel of his black Mercedes, fresh from a tense meeting with Asian investors, he exuded the aura of a man not to be trifled with. His clean-shaven face, the neatly slicked-back silver hair, and his tailored suit spoke of wealth and discipline. At 48, Samuel was the portrait of quiet power. Yet his usually unreadable gaze now reflected a weariness that not even the tinted windows could hide. Tapping his fingers absently on the steering wheel, he glanced at the sidewalks as if searching for something or someone he couldn't quite name. And then time seemed to stop. There, on the corner of the street, beneath the awning of an old bookstore, a woman was waving for a yellow cab that zipped by too fast to notice. She wore a navy blue dress, simple but elegant. Her chestnut reddish hair was tied in a makeshift bun, and a scarf hung from her neck with effortless charm. She wasn't young like the models Samuel had dated over the years, but she possessed a serene, mature beauty that needed no approval. And at that moment, his eyes widened. "Lauren," he whispered, as if his own voice betrayed him. There was no doubt it was her. The woman he had once loved with foolish, reckless intensity in his youth. The same woman who had vanished without explanation, leaving behind only a poorly written letter and a shattered heart. But it wasn't just her that left him speechless. Beside Lauren stood three boys identical. Not just to each other. Identical to him. Three pairs of dark eyes. Three determined expressions. Three child-sized versions of his face, his posture, the way he furrowed his brow. Samuel felt like he'd been punched in the gut. His foot eased off the gas without him noticing, and the car nearly stopped in the middle of the avenue. "This can't be real," he murmured, eyes wide in disbelief. The boys were running circles around Lauren, arguing over who would get the window seat in the taxi, laughing out loud. She tried to organize the chaos with motherly authority and patience. One wore a crooked cap, another clutched a dinosaur book. The third, quieter, seemed to be observing everything with the same thoughtful curiosity Samuel had as a child. On impulse, Samuel turned the steering wheel and parked across the street, completely forgetting about the rest of his day. His heart pounded in his chest like he was 20 again. "Lauren, what did you do?" he murmured, eyes locked on her. She hadn't seen him yet, too busy calming the boys, who were now begging for ice cream before heading home. Samuel stepped out of the car, his shoes tapping firmly against the asphalt. The world around him faded into background noise. Every step toward her felt like walking through a minefield of memories, secret kisses on park benches, that summer in Cape Cod. The dreams that never came true. And the abrupt breakup he never fully understood. Just a few steps away, she saw him. Her smile vanished instantly. Her eyes widened. For a moment, time stopped again. The boys also noticed the stranger approaching. They fell silent, curiously, staring at the well-dressed man who now stood before them. "Lauren," he said, trying to keep a casual tone, as if this unexpected meeting hadn't turned his world upside down. "It's been a long time." She stared at him for a second, as if weighing whether to run or face him. In the end, she took a deep breath, like someone swallowing the entire past in one gulp. "Samuel." His name came out dry, without effort, to hide the ice in her voice. An awkward silence followed. "What a coincidence," he tried with a crooked smile. "Manhattan's a big city, but fate's got its ways." Lauren said nothing. The boys looked at her, then at Samuel, then back to her. The one with the cap asked quietly, "Mom, who's that man?" "An old acquaintance," she replied quickly. Without taking her eyes off Samuel. Samuel let out a short, nervous laugh. "Acquaintance? You always had a talent for downplaying things, didn't you?" She crossed her arms firmly. "And you always had a talent for showing up at the worst possible time." The tension between them was so obvious that even the boys looked alarmed. Samuel glanced at them again. This couldn't be coincidence. Those eyes, that chin, the way they moved ... Are they ... Lauren cut him off. None of your business. Lauren! For God's sake, look at them. They're a copy of me. I'm glad you noticed, but now, if you'll excuse us. She turned to the boys, trying to distract them. Come on, kids, the ice cream's waiting. But Samuel took a step forward, nearly pleading. Wait, let me talk to you. 1 minute, please. She stopped. Looked at the boys, then back at him. It's been over 10 years, Samuel. If you had something to say, you could have said it a long time ago. I didn't even know there was something to say. She stared at him with tear-glossed eyes, not from emotion, but restrained fury. Then she took a deep breath. It's too late, and she turned, guiding the boys down the sidewalk. Samuel stood there, frozen, watching the small faces that seemed to carry pieces of himself as the taxi pulled away and disappeared into the avenue. Samuel leaned against his car, chest heaving. In that moment, he knew his life was about to change forever. That evening in Manhattan descended with a discomforting slowness. The city lights sparkled as if mocking Samuel Mars, still standing in front of the window of his penthouse apartment. Below, the traffic looked like a restless river of light, but he couldn't move. Lauren's image and the 3 boys still danced in front of his eyes like a waking dream. An acquaintance, she said. Acquaintance? After everything? He scoffed and poured himself a glass of expensive whiskey, but the taste meant nothing. Everything felt bitter now. The next morning, even before sunrise, Samuel was back in his car. Her sharp words still echoed in his head. It's been over 10 years. It's too late. He refused to accept that. He never had. Anyone who knew Samuel knew. When he wanted something, he didn't stop until he got it. And now he needed answers. And he needed to see Lauren again. That morning, he saw her. By chance or maybe not. The city had a curious way of conspiring when it had to. She was leaving school with the 3 boys, each carrying a backpack bigger than themselves. They looked talkative, noisy, charming. The most talkative one gestured wildly while telling some story. The one with the cap still wore it tilted to the side. And the quiet one walked slowly, watching the clouds above. Samuel saw them first. And then, he saw her. Lauren. She looked even more beautiful than he remembered. Not with youthful beauty, but with a quiet strength in her face, an elegant weariness. The look of someone who carried more than she should, yet kept moving forward. He approached slowly. Are you following me now? She asked, before he even opened his mouth. I prefer to call it strategic coincidence, he replied, flashing that crooked smile she knew too well. Lauren rolled her eyes and sighed as the boys ran ahead, playing a game of jumping over sidewalk. Cracks, Samuel, I don't have time for this. Not for this. Or not for me. She stopped. Turned to face him, eyes steady. For things that won't change anything. Samuel stepped a little closer. His voice was different now. Less arrogant, more honest. Lauren, I spent the whole night thinking. I couldn't sleep. You show up with 3 boys who look like they stepped out of a time machine from my childhood, and I'm supposed to act like that's normal? She crossed her arms. You have no idea what happened after I left. You can't imagine what I went through. Then tell me, I want to know. I need to know. Lauren looked around, as if searching for a corner of the city to hide in. She found none. The boys were sitting on a nearby bench, sharing a bag of cookies and tossing crumbs to the pigeons. She sighed deeply, torn between the urge to say everything and the stronger urge to walk away. All right. 5 minutes. He nodded toward an empty bench. They sat side by side, but with the distance of 2 different worlds between them. Talk. Samuel ran a hand through his hair. After you left, I thought I had done something wrong, but you Didn't even let me ask. The letter you left was so shallow. It just said it was over. That you had to go." She swallowed hard, but kept her gaze firm. "You think I left because I wanted to? You think I could possibly understand if you never explained?" Silence grew heavier between them. Lauren looked at her sons, now playing with sticks. One gave commands like a general. Another pretended to be a dog. The third drew something invisible on the ground. She turned to Samuel again. Her eyes filled with bitterness. "Have you changed, Samuel?" He frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything, because back then, you were brilliant, ambitious, but cruel. You said things without thinking. You thought you were invincible. One day, I heard you say, word for word, that kids only get in the way and that you had no patience for children." Samuel swallowed hard. The memory throbbed from some long-forgotten corner of his mind. He had said that during a silly conversation with some colleagues, trying to sound tough and untouchable. He didn't even remember she was nearby. "Lauren, I was an idiot. You were, and I was pregnant that week." Samuel closed his eyes, heart tightening. "I thought if I told you, you'd throw me out. I saw the future you wanted, and I didn't see myself or our kids in it, so I left. Without even giving me a chance to try," he murmured. Voice thick. She wiped a quick tear away. "I did what I thought I had to do to protect them. Maybe I made mistakes too, but I never regretted having them." He looked at her deeply. Behind that strong woman was pain. And courage, and love. "Lauren, I'm not that man anymore. Not even close. I learned the hard way that success means nothing if there's no one to share it with. You don't know how much I—" He paused, taking a breath. How much I missed you." She turned her face away, clearly affected. But pride still stood between them like a stone wall. "That doesn't change anything. They don't know who you are. I never told them. I never wanted to confuse them. Their life is good the way it is. But what if it could be better with me around? They don't need money, Samuel. I'm not talking about money." She looked at him again. And for a moment, her eyes said something her mouth didn't dare to speak. "I have to go. They have homework." She stood up, calling the boys with a short whistle. They ran over to her. Samuel stayed seated, watching the four of them walk away. But something had changed now, because Lauren looked back. Just for a second. Subtle, but she looked. And that tiny gesture ... was the opening he needed. That sliver of hope, just a glance. 1 second. But to Samuel, it was like she'd left the door slightly ajar, and he'd always known how to slip through cracks. In the days that followed, Lauren's and the boys' faces became a constant whirlwind in Samuel's mind. He couldn't focus in meetings, ignored the stacks of reports on his desk, and for the first time in years, his phone remained off for hours. There was something he needed to fix, an old gap in his story that now screamed for answers. He called Marcus, his trusted personal assistant for over a decade. "I need information on someone," he said coldly, watching the rain trickle down his office windows. "Name? Address?" "Lauren Mitchell. She lived with me about 14 years ago. Disappeared without warning." Marcus hesitated. "You want me to investigate?" "Nothing invasive. I just want to know what happened to her after she vanished. And who the boy's father is." Silence on the other end. Samuel ... "If you have any doubts about that ... just one look at them. I know, I'm not denying anything. I just need to understand what she went through, why she made that decision, and what I missed." 2 days later, Marcus returned with a discreet dossier, nothing flashy. Just basic and painful information. Lauren had left New York right after the breakup. She spent months moving from city to city, changing jobs, living in small apartments. Only years later did she settle in Queens, working as a teacher in a community school. She raised the boys alone, never married. There was no father listed on the children's documents. No child support claims. No attempts at contact. Samuel read everything twice, in silence. She had truly disappeared, wiped herself from the map by choice. And by fear. Among the files was a photo of her, younger, holding 3 babies in her arms. Exhausted, but proud. It was her, in another life. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Everything began to make sense. She hadn't run out of pride. She'd run out of fear. That night, alone in his apartment, Samuel pulled out a dusty box from the back of his closet. He hadn't opened it in years. Inside were old letters, yellowed photographs, and scribbled notes from Lauren, from a time when they believed love was enough. There, among the papers, he found a letter she had never delivered. No date, no addressee. Samuel, I loved you more than I ever thought possible, and that's exactly why I left. When I heard you say that children only get in the way, my world collapsed. I already knew I was pregnant, and I felt like I was carrying a sentence. I thought telling you the truth would only destroy us. So I ran, to save our children from rejection and maybe to protect myself too. I hope someday you'll understand. And forgive me, Lauren. Samuel closed the letter with trembling hands. It was more than a secret. It was a wound that had never truly healed. And now, after so long, it was bleeding again. The next morning, he decided to go to the school where Lauren worked. The building was modest but well kept. Children ran across the yard, and a few teachers chatted at the entrance. He stepped out of the car without knowing exactly what he would say, only driven by a pressure in his chest that no longer fit inside him. She saw him the moment she left the teacher's lounge. Stopped mid-hallway, surprised and then annoyed. Again? I read your letter, he said bluntly. No fluff. She froze. How? It was tucked among our old memories. You never gave it to me. She crossed her arms, defensive. It wasn't meant for you to read. But I did, and now I finally understand. You didn't leave because you didn't love me. You left because you were afraid. Lauren looked down. The hallways were empty, but the tension was thick. I was terrified. You think it was easy? Raising 3 boys alone? Working in the morning, doing laundry at night, waking up at 2 a.m. with fevers, colic, crying. She took a breath, eyes shimmering. It wasn't about you. It was about them. I loved them from the first ultrasound, and you weren't ready. Samuel stepped closer, calmer now. And you didn't want to give me a chance to prove I could be. I did what I thought was right, Samuel. And now? Do you still think it's right to keep me away? Lauren hesitated. He gently touched her arm. I missed their birth. Their first steps, first words. I don't even know if they preferred dinosaurs or superheroes, but I want to know. I don't want to miss anything else. She took a deep breath, avoiding his gaze. And, what if they don't accept you? I'll take that risk. Because they're my children. A heavy silence settled between them. The school felt frozen in time. They like dinosaurs, she said at last with a sad smile. And soccer. And Ethan is scared of thunder, though he pretends he's not. Samuel smiled for the first time in days. Looks like we have a lot to talk about. Lauren stared at him for a moment. There was no forgiveness yet, no reconciliation. But there was a beginning, a wider opening. They get out at 3, if you want. You can walk with us to the ice cream shop. Samuel nodded. He didn't need more than that. For now. The corner ice cream shop was small, with red awnings and metal tables that looked like they belonged to another era. A simple place, full of children, laughter, and chocolate syrup stains on the floor. It wasn't the kind of setting Samuel Mars was used to, but that day, he felt more at ease there than in any multi-million-dollar business meeting. Seated at a table with Lauren and the triplets, he watched the boys as if seeing his own past unfold before his eyes. Ethan, the quietest, focused intensely on his strawberry cone. Lucas, the one with the cap, rambled nonstop about dinosaurs and medieval battles. And Noah, the most restless, drummed on the table with his spoon as if overflowing with spare energy. Lauren kept a watchful eye on all three, stepping in here and there with the firm tone of someone who'd learned to command chaos without losing. Tenderness. Samuel found himself admiring her, not just how much she'd changed, but how much she had grown. Double quotes, so got that. Are you Mom's friend? Lucas asked, mouth smeared with chocolate syrup. Samuel glanced at Lauren, who pressed her lips and gave a small, go slow nod. You could say that. An old friend, Samuel replied, trying to keep things light. Are you rich? Noah asked bluntly. Lauren widened her eyes. Noah. Samuel let out a low chuckle. Well, let's say I work a lot. He's got a car that looks like a spaceship, Ethan added, still focused on his cone. Samuel smiled, but a shadow lingered behind that smile. A growing unease that had begun the moment he saw Lauren on that sidewalk. It was impossible to ignore the details. The boys' clothes were a bit worn, their backpacks carefully patched. Lauren, though composed and dignified, bore signs of exhaustion that no makeup could hide. There was no luxury here, just effort, struggle. And Samuel knew all too well how expensive it was to live modestly in a city like New York. After the boys went to play in the makeshift park behind the ice cream shop, he looked at Lauren seriously. They're incredible. No, she said, with pride. And you've done an amazing job, Lauren. Raising 3 boys on your own. Without help is more than admirable. It's heroic. She looked away, suspicious of his tone. What do you want, Samuel? 2. Help, she laughed dryly. That short laugh that doesn't come from humor, but from disbelief. You don't need to do that. I didn't come to ask for anything. I never asked. I'm not about to start. Maybe you should, he said firmly. You have no idea how much time in life I lost believing I wasn't a father. That I had nothing to protect, to teach, to care about beyond my company. She crossed her arms. And now you want to make up for it with a check? No, I'm not here to offer money. I'm offering what you've always done alone. Presence, support, responsibility. Lauren looked at him. That has a cost. And it's not cheap. I can handle it. She remained silent. He continued, let me help. With their school, health, plan, food, whatever you need. This isn't charity, Lauren. It's duty. They're my children too. She took a deep breath. Her eyes glistened, but she fought back the tears like a warrior used to not surrendering. And what then? You show up for a month or two, then disappear? Find another life, another woman, another priority? I already had all that. And even with everything, I was never complete. Now I understand why. She shook her head, clearly still unable to fully trust. It was still too recent. And she had learned the hard way to rely on no one but herself. You know what's hardest? She whispered. It's not accepting your help. It's explaining to them who you are. Facing 3 little faces that grew up thinking they had everything, and telling them they were missing something all along. I want to be there for that, if you'll let me. Lauren studied him closely. Finally, she pulled a folded paper from her bag, a handwritten list. This is the grocery list. I waited 2 days for a late school deposit. Didn't know if I'd be able to buy this week's fruit. Samuel took the list gently. He read it, his eyes filling not with tears, but rage. Rage at himself, at his choices, at his absence. This won't happen again, he promised though she stood up. We'll see. In the days that followed, Samuel didn't show up with luxury cars or expensive gifts. Instead, he came with patience. He returned to the ice cream shop. He picked the boys up from school. He exchanged simple messages with Lauren. And one day, he surprised them all by showing up with a pizza box and 3 new dinosaur books. He began noticing the details. Ethan always fell asleep in the car. Lucas was allergic to strawberries, and Noah couldn't stay still for more than 3 minutes. Lauren's house was small, but full of life. And little by little, Samuel began to fit into that world, not as the billionaire Samuel Mars, but as something he had never known how to be before. A father. Lauren watched everything from a distance. Still grounded, still cautious, but her heart was beginning, ever so slowly, to take a step forward. One rainy afternoon, Samuel arrived with an old puzzle box and said he wanted a challenge. Ethan, skeptical, crossed his arms. "That's for grown-ups." "And you look like someone who thinks like a grown-up," Samuel replied, winking. 30 minutes later, they were both on the rug, surrounded by puzzle pieces and a bowl of popcorn. Lucas gave in during a visit to the Natural History Museum. Samuel brought tickets and a printed-out kid's guide he had made himself. When Lucas saw the T-Rex skeleton, he grabbed Samuel's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Did you know the T-Rex had binocular vision?" he asked, eyes shining. "I had no idea. Will you teach me?" Lucas smiled and began to talk for 40 straight minutes. Now Noah. Oh, Noah was another story. He had the energy to power a whole city block and a sharp tongue that challenged any adult. "Can you do a cartwheel, Mr. Mars?" he asked one Saturday in the park. "A cartwheel? Like this?" he shouted, flipping his legs in the air with the agility of a gymnast. "Yeah, I think I'll pass." "Then you're not qualified to be a dad." "Hey, that's a low blow." Noah burst out laughing. And that afternoon, Samuel spent more time rolling on the grass than he had in his entire adult life. Lauren observed all of it with a conflicted heart. On one hand, seeing her sons connect with Samuel was beautiful, touching, even. They didn't yet know he was their father. She had asked for time before telling them. But something about the three of them, an almost biological instinct, pulled them naturally toward him. On the other hand, she lived with constant fear. Fear that it wouldn't last. That this was just another promise waiting to break. "They're going to get attached, Samuel. Do you understand that?" she said one night, while the boys slept and the two of them shared coffee in her tiny kitchen. "I want them to get attached. And I want to be here for it. And if you're not, then you can hate me for the rest of your life. But I'll be here, Lauren. I can't change the past, but I can be the father they deserve now." She looked at him, and for the first time in years, she let him hold her hand. With time, their routines took on new shapes. Samuel began taking them to school sometimes. He joined family lunches, watched soccer games, laughed at the drawings on the wall, and one way or another learned to tell the difference between Ethan's pasta preferences and Noah's. One liked white sauce. The other wanted ketchup. Lucas, of course, wanted both. The neighborhood began to notice. Whispered comments at school meetings and in the apartment hallways. "Is Lauren dating? Who's that handsome man with the boys?" Lauren only replied with a short smile and a polite nod. She didn't owe anyone explanations. But inside, something was shifting. One night, a storm broke over New York. Lightning cut the sky like blades, and the wind howled against the windows. The boys ran through the house, excited until a loud thunderclap made Ethan jump and cling to Samuel. "Daddy!" Silence fell heavy in the room. Lauren's eyes widened. Ethan realized what he had said and shrank back. Blushing, Samuel hugged him tightly. "It's okay, champ," he whispered. "You can call me whatever you want." Lauren quietly slipped away to the kitchen. Her hands were shaking. A few minutes later, Samuel approached her. "I didn't plan that." "I know," she said, her voice thick, but it hurt. She nodded. "They already know, Lauren. They suspect. But they haven't heard it from me." Samuel gently touched her shoulder. "Do you want to tell them together?" She looked him in the eye. And for the first time in a long time, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Truth. Yes. The following weekend, all 5 of them sat together in the living room. Samuel was nervous. More than at any press conference or boardroom showdown, Lauren began, with the calm of someone who had already weathered 1,000 storms. "Boys, we need to talk to you about Samuel." They paused, all eyes on her. Silence. "He's a friend. A very special friend. Someone who was part of my life before you were born." "Like a boyfriend?" Lucas asked, wrinkling his nose. "Yes, and there's more. Samuel is your father." The three boys froze. Seconds passed like hours. Noah was the first to speak. "I knew it." Ethan's mouth hung open. "Really?" Lucas blinked several times. "He's totally our clone." Samuel knelt down in front of them. "I wasn't here before, but I want to be here now, if you'll let me." The three looked at each other. Then, as if sharing one mind, they ran to him and threw their arms around him, one on each side. Small, tight arms. A tangle of feelings that needed no translation. That night, Lauren stood on the porch, gazing at the city lights. Samuel joined her with 2 mugs of tea. "So, what now?" he asked. "Now. One step at a time. I can wait. A lifetime if I have to." She smiled softly. "Just don't take too long." He smiled too. And for the first time, he felt that this messy, noisy, wonderful place was home. That year, autumn arrived. Early. The trees in Central Park turned red and gold, and the mornings carried a crisp air that hinted at change. Samuel walked through the park with the triplets. Noah raced ahead like an explorer charting new lands. Lucas explained why the leaves fell so new ones could grow. And Ethan walked with his hands in his pockets, eyes on the sky. Samuel watched them with a full heart. These boys weren't just his biological children. They were something much greater, a family. But between him and Lauren, there was still a shadow. Something unsaid. Something that lingered in her eyes, no matter how much they tried to move forward. That night, while the boys slept and the house was silent, Lauren called Samuel into the kitchen. "We need to talk," she said firmly. Samuel leaned against the counter, arms crossed. He knew this was coming. About what? About the night everything changed, that conversation you had with your colleagues. "Do you remember?" He sighed. The memory still stung. They were at a bar after a long meeting, drinks flowing. Stupid jokes. Jokes about women, kids, responsibilities, I remember. I said terrible, immature things. She stepped closer. "You have no idea how much that broke me." "I know now," he said quietly, "and I regret it. More than anything I've ever done." She looked straight at him, pain in her eyes. "But something more urgent, too. I heard you say you never wanted kids. That you had no patience for them. That any woman who got pregnant was on her own." Samuel shut his eyes, feeling the weight of those words like a blow to the chest. "I said that. God. I had the pregnancy test in my purse, Samuel. I'd bought it that afternoon. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't tell you. I imagined you kicking me out, calling me crazy, or worse, forcing me to get rid of them." He froze, heart pounding. "Lauren, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I believed that, if I stayed, we'd all be miserable. You, me, and the children." He ran his hands over his face, drowning in guilt. "I was a boy. A fool trying to look strong in front of others. And in the process, I lost you. I lost them." Lauren gripped a cup tightly, like it was the only thing holding her together. "I spent so many nights awake, Samuel. Crying quietly, afraid I couldn't do it alone. Afraid they'd ask about you one day. And now you're here, and they love you. And I'm the one with this knot in my throat, not knowing whether to trust you or run again." Samuel stepped closer, touched her face gently. "Stay, please. Stay and let me take care of you. Of them, I've changed, Lauren. But I'm not going to say it 1,000 times. I'd rather show you. One day at a time." She leaned her forehead against his, silent. A simple gesture, yet filled with meaning. And in that moment, Samuel knew this was the beginning of forgiveness. The following days were unusually peaceful. Samuel took the boys to the movies, helped Lucas build a model volcano, attended Noah's school play where he played an angry pine tree, and began building something resembling a real routine. But inside, Lauren was still holding on by a thread. One night, she stayed up looking through old photo albums, flipping through pictures of the boys when they were babies. Alone, a cup of tea in hand, she reread the diary she kept in those early years, full of fears, hopes, promises. The next morning, Samuel found her on the porch, eyes tired. Didn't sleep? Not much. You okay? She turned away, trying to hide her tears. Do you have any idea how hard it is to trust again? Yes, he said. And even so, I'm here, trying, because you're worth it. She took a deep breath, tired of running, tired of holding the world on her shoulders, and maybe, just maybe, Samuel really had changed. A week later, Lauren made a decision. She sat with the boys in the living room, called Samuel to sit beside her, and took a deep breath. Kids, there's something I need to tell you, something I never said, but now you should know. The boys looked at each other, curious. Samuel gently took Lauren's hand. The reason you grew up with just me, no dad, is because I was scared, afraid of being rejected, afraid of doing it alone. I thought I was doing the right thing. You weren't wrong, Ethan said calmly. But now that Dad's here, we're right? Asked Lucas. Lauren smiled and cried. For the first time, in front of them. And the boys hugged her, so tightly that Samuel had to breathe deeply to keep from breaking down too. That afternoon, they went to the park. A regular day with popcorn, kites, and silent promises of a new beginning. But peace never lasts long when the past still whispers. Later that night, while Lauren was organizing the boys' backpacks in the kitchen, she saw an envelope among the school papers. It was a bank notice, addressed to Samuel. Curious and worried, she opened it. Her stomach dropped. Hidden debts, unstable investments, active investigations. A financial scandal quietly unraveling, and Samuel hadn't said a word. When he walked in that evening, she was waiting at the door with the envelope in hand. Want to tell me what this is? Samuel froze. Lauren. Not now. I was going to tell you. You lied. I didn't lie. I just didn't want to worry you. So you're in the middle of losing your empire and thought it wasn't worth mentioning? After everything that happened? The boys heard from the hallway. Lauren turned and told them to go upstairs. When she turned back, her expression had changed completely. I trusted you again. And this is what you were hiding? Samuel stepped forward, trying to explain. I thought I could fix it before it became a problem. I didn't want to drag you into the chaos. I thought we could have this time together without all that noise. But now it's all mixed in. Again, you show up, promise the world, and then it blows up. So now what, Samuel? She was hurt, disappointed, but above all afraid. Samuel tried to speak, but she had already grabbed her keys. I need to think. I need to protect my children, again, and she left, leaving Samuel alone in the middle of the living room. The same room that had been filled with laughter just days before. Now, it echoed with the silence of a new rupture. The house had been silent since the fight, but the absence of Lauren and the boys was louder than any shout. Samuel wandered through the rooms, looking for traces of something he wasn't sure still existed. Everything in the house, the toys scattered across the floor, the scent of freshly washed clothes, the grocery list taped to the fridge screamed family. But now, it was all empty. She had left again. But this time, he knew it was his last chance. 3 days of complete silence passed. 3 days where Samuel didn't sleep, barely ate, didn't go to work. He spent hours on the couch, trying to understand where he'd failed again. He wasn't the reckless man he once was. but maybe he was still learning how to be someone truly worthy of a second chance. On the third day, he got in the car and drove to Queens. He parked on the same street where Lauren used to live. The neighborhood was modest, noisy, alive. An elderly woman watering plants on her balcony waved at him. "Looking for Lauren?" She asked bluntly. "Yes. Is she here?" She came back with the boys, said she needed peace. Hard to find that these days, huh? Samuel smiled faintly, nodded, thanked her and stood across the street, watching, and he waited for hours, until the door opened. Lauren stepped outside, distracted, holding a bag of bread. When she saw him, she stopped. Her eyes locked onto his. There was no anger, no relief, just exhaustion. He raised his hand in a timid wave. "Can I talk to you?" She hesitated, then nodded. They walked to a small bench in the neighborhood park, sat in silence. An elderly couple fed pigeons nearby. Kids played soccer on a dusty field. "How long were you standing there?" she asked, not looking at him. "Long enough to realize how badly I screwed up." She crossed her arms, eyes fixed ahead. "I'm tired, Samuel. I know. I'm tired of being strong, of carrying everything, and of trusting just to have to start over alone again. I don't want you to carry anything alone anymore." She turned to face him. Then, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought I could fix everything before it affected you. I thought I had time, that the scandal wouldn't blow up, that I could protect the little world we were building." "And are you still trying?" "More than ever," he said, eyes firm. "Lauren, I'm not the man who once measured success by his bank account. Today, I know my biggest failure was losing you and those boys. And if I have to lose everything to have you back, I accept." She studied him quietly, as if looking for cracks in his words. But she found none. "The Conde kids miss you. I miss them too, more than I can say. Noah drew a picture yesterday. It was you falling into a hole and him lowering a rope to pull you out." Samuel laughed, eyes filling. "Sounds just like him. That kid is fire." "And Ethan had a fever." When I asked what was wrong, he said, "I'm sick from missing Dad." Samuel blinked back tears. "And Lucas?" "Lucas is furious. He said men lie and that he'll never trust anyone again." "It hurts, Lauren. They hurt too." Samuel took a deep breath, pulled something from his pocket. "An envelope. What's that?" "My resignation." "What do you mean?" "I'm stepping down from the company, from the board, from everything. I'm selling my shares, paying what I owe, starting over if I have to. Not out of desperation, but out of choice." She widened her eyes. "That's insane. It's love. Silence. Are you sure?" "I am. I don't want to spend another day chasing numbers that cost me the people I love." Lauren held the envelope, stunned. "I'm going to prove to you that I've changed, not with speeches, but with actions." She looked at him for a long moment, then let out a long sigh and said, "Come have dinner with us tonight." Samuel's eyes widened. "Really? It doesn't mean everything's fixed, but it's a new beginning." He smiled, relieved, as if finally breathing again. "I'll bring dessert." Dinner was simple: rice, roasted chicken, and salad. But when Samuel stepped through the door, the boys shouted with joy. Noah ran to wrap himself around his waist. Lucas grumbled but smiled, and Ethan simply cried silently, his arms around Samuel's neck. During dinner, Lauren just observed the small table, the laughter, the silly jokes, the battle over the last piece of chicken. It was all so ordinary, so precious. Later, after the kids were in bed, Lauren and Samuel sat on the floor, eating leftover pizza and laughing about tomato sauce stains on their shirts. "You know, people are calling you the crazy romantic ex-billionaire, right?" she teased. "I prefer ex-billionaire hopelessly in love." "And now? What are you going to live off of?" "I still have my name. I could open a cafe, sell paintings, Teach a class on business ethics. Ethics? She laughed. Okay. Maybe how not to ruin your love life in 5 steps. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you, Samuel. But next time, tell me everything before making epic speeches on national TV. I promise, only private speeches from now on. They looked at each other and kissed with the certainty that, this time, they were exactly where they were supposed to be together. For real. The sun peeked shyly through the window of their modest home in Queens, bathing the kitchen in golden light. The kettle whistled on the stove, the boys still slept upstairs, and Lauren stirred the coffee with a quiet smile. For the first time in many years, peace felt real, solid, almost touchable. Samuel appeared with messy hair and sleepy eyes. You made coffee, or is this just another dream? It's coffee. Dreams don't smell like burnt toast, she replied, handing him a cup. You're much better than any multinational corporation, of course, and way harder to win over. He laughed, pulling up a chair. You know, if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting in a tiny kitchen with toast burning and 3 sons upstairs, I'd have laughed. And now? Now I know I wasn't living free before. I was just lonely and didn't know it. She walked over and hugged him from behind. I never wanted to change you. I just wanted you to stop running from who you really are. A man who makes pancakes the wrong way and makes his sons laugh while doing it. That's worth more than any bonus. In the months that followed, life took on a new rhythm. Samuel opened a small consulting firm, working just a few hours a week, helping young entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes he once made. Lauren kept teaching with more lightness in her heart. The boys grew, talked nonstop, made a mess, and called Samuel Dad with a naturalness that was painful in its beauty. They didn't have luxury, but they had everything. Until one ordinary morning, the doorbell rang. Samuel opened it. Still holding a spatula. At the door stood a man in a dark suit, discreet glasses, and a leather briefcase. Mr. Mars? That's me. And if it's about money, all I've got are quarters. For the vending machine. The man smiled politely. My name is Andrew Rothman. I represent an investment fund based in Geneva. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Ibrahim El Malik. Samuel frowned. Never heard of him. He was one of the main shareholders of your former company. He followed your story closely. And he admired your decision. He believes integrity and family values are the greatest assets a man can have. And he's offering you a proposal. Lauren appeared, holding a dish towel. What kind of proposal? The man opened his briefcase, took out a contract, and a handwritten note. Samuel, you lost everything to gain what most never will. That's why I'm returning part of what was once yours, but under new conditions. The El Malik Holding wants to invest in a foundation bearing your name. A place to form leaders grounded in humanity, ethics, empathy, purpose. You will have full control. But with one condition, your family must be involved. Lauren as co-founder. Your children as the heart of the mission. The world doesn't need more rich men. It needs whole men. Ibrahim El Malik. Samuel looked at Lauren. Her mouth was slightly open. This wasn't wealth, it was purpose. And? Andrew asked. Samuel folded the letter. Can we have one night to think? Of course. But know this, the fund has already lined up donors. Trust in the name Mars is now rooted in your story, not your bank account. That night, the conversation was long. Lauren, sitting on the couch, chewed on a pencil. Don't you feel like this is a second chance? I do. But I don't want us to get lost in it again. We won't, not this time. We know what matters now, and we can build something real, together. And the boys? They're already part of it. They're the reason. Samuel took a deep breath. Then let's do it. She smiled. He pulled her close. But under one condition, he added. What? You sign as co-founder, and you as a man finally redeemed. A much heavier title to carry. Months later, the Mars and Mitchell Foundation was inaugurated in a restored old school in Brooklyn. The launch gathered educators, young talents, and media. But more than speeches and cameras, what impressed people most was the simplicity of the couple on stage. Lauren, in a light dress and steady eyes, spoke about loving without expecting perfection. Samuel, calmer than ever, told his story of downfall, redemption, and love. At the end, the triplets climbed onto the stage. Noah grabbed the mic boldly. This place is gonna teach people to be nice and not leave their kids. The audience burst out laughing. Lucas added, and there's gonna be grape juice in the cafeteria. I asked for it. Ethan shyly smiled and said, this place is kinda like our home, just bigger. And it truly was. The foundation became a reference in human development. Samuel and Lauren were invited to speak at universities. The boys grew up watching their parents teach by example, that integrity and love build a legacy stronger than any empire. And in that same house in Queens where everything had begun, the nights were still filled with noise, laughter, and arguments about who'd wash the dishes. Because, despite the success, the essence never changed. They had it all. Without needing it all. And just when peace seemed complete, the phone rang. Samuel answered, expecting something trivial. A serious voice on the other end. Mr. Mars, this is the UAE consulate. You may not know yet, but you are the legal heir to a private legacy left by a businessman who passed away 3 weeks ago. His name, Ibrahim El-Malik. Samuel froze. What? The voice continued. There was a clause. If you refused the corporate offer but accepted to build something rooted in human values, his entire fortune would be transferred to you. Estimated value, $500 million. Samuel sat down. Lauren entered the room, reading his expression. Something happened? He looked at her. And smiled. I think our life's about to change. Again. If this story touched your heart, and you believe in second chances and love that truly transforms, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Here, stories are made to move you, and the next one is already baking in the oven.